Welcome back to Let's Talk Travel with the Pretty Wanderer, and I'm the host, Fatima Barnes. So glad to be back. I appreciate all the love and support that was shown for the Mother's Day episode. It was amazing. I received so many heartfelt messages from moms out there, so I'm so glad that the episode was helpful for so many people. This week will also be helpful. Why? Because we're in for some therapy. And I'm excited because this week we're going to be taking a deep dive into anxiety and talking with my actual therapist, Natasha Harris. So I am excited about that. So now let's get ready for Let's Talk Travel and Anxiety. Now, on to today's tips, or as I like to say, pulling from my little luggage of tricks. This week is all going to be focused on how you can save money on flights. I know I talked about that a little bit, one of my travel hacks for doing that in the first episode, but I get a lot of questions about ways that I can save money on flights. Now, there's no doubt that I am an avid believer of using points. I've gotten so many free flights that way, but there are some times where I can't use points to travel and I have to pay. And so I'm going to go over some things that I do that has saved me a great deal of money on flights. The first is knowing when to actually travel. And what does that mean? That means knowing when is the best time to fly to get the best deal. So you may have heard this before, but honestly, this is true. If you can travel on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or even leave somewhere on a Saturday, you can actually see lower fare on those days. I actually just tried to quote a flight to Chicago and leave on a Friday versus quoting it to leave on that Wednesday, and it was like $150 difference. So if you can be flexible and if you can fly out on those days, I highly recommend it. That will save you money. I've done it multiple times. Another thing about that is also knowing that there is usually lower fares if you travel somewhere during the off season. Now, what does that mean? It means wherever you're going, or even for the U.S. standards, that's typically an off season, like your Septembers or, those time periods. Because that's an off season, you'll usually see lower fare during that time. For instance, I love that my anniversary is in September. And because it's in September, that's usually when my husband and I like to do our anniversary trip. Well, usually we see a great deal on fares when we do have to pay because it's September. Even if that place is a great place for tourism year round, you still can benefit from September being kind of an off season here in the U.S. So that's another thing to take into consideration. Another thing is knowing actually when to book. So not just when to travel, but when to book. So with that being said, there is a few things that I actually do. I actually do set up price alerts, and I do that by using Hopper or Google Flights. And what that is I set in where I want to go and when and the flight details, and Hopper will tell me, hey, you might want to wait to book that flight, or hey, this is the best time to book. You should book now. Same with Google. They'll let me know as the flight prices change and go up and down. And I use that a lot to know when to book different flights, and I've saved a lot of money. Hopper is awesome for that. Another thing that I do is I actually utilize Sky Scanners for their daily flight deals and last minute flight deals. I have that set up to alert me via email. So I know sometimes you can catch really good deals that will make you just want to say, hey, listen, we're going here this weekend because look at the deal on it. So I definitely take advantage of flight alerts in several ways. Another rule that I follow, which is a industry trend. Some people say it's a myth. Some people say I've known it to work for me. I'm just saying. But the 7-week rule. And the 7-week rule is usually 7 weeks before you need to fly out is usually when you will see the greatest savings on your flights and the best deals. I don't know if every airline does it, but I do know that I have taken advantage of that and it's worked for me a few times. But that's just a trend that they notice. So you want to make sure maybe you check within that 7 weeks and kind of see right around that time. Always check the fare again. 7 weeks before. You'll probably find combining that rule with looking on Hopper, usually you'll probably be able to tell if that is the best time to book. So those are some things that I take advantage of. I also do like to book flights in the wee hours of the morning. I've saved a lot of money that way, like at your 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. Don't ask me why I'm up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning looking at flights. We're not going to talk about that. But yeah, I've actually saved money that way. My trip that I was supposed to go on this year to Africa, which I don't really know if that's still going to happen in September, I got a really great deal booking that flight at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. So just another thought there. And my last and final tip to think about as it pertains to saving money, I did this actually for my flight to London. And what I do is I go to that airline in that country's or whatever airline that I'm going to use, and I change the location to that time's local travel or that local website, if that makes sense. So for instance, if I want to fly British Airways, normally when you look it up, you're going to be on the US website. I changed the location to me being in the actual UK and booked it through their website as if I was booking from the UK. And I actually saved a lot of money because sometimes they don't update the conversion rates. So if the money is different and there's conversion differences and you book it under their website, under their conversion rates, it will automatically convert to your currency when it's charged on your credit card. But when you're booking it under their currency rates. And I have saved, I know for sure, I think I saved like $70-$80 doing that for 2 flights. So sometimes you may have to change the language or like I said, change the location to that home country's actual URL, but you will see that sometimes you can save a lot of money. Not always, but it doesn't hurt to check. And usually that is the benefit of playing around with it online, is to definitely look into that and just kind of see wherever you're going overseas, if you can change it to that country's URL and website and time zone and currency rate and pay that way to save some money. So those are my tips for ways that you can save money on booking flights. We've got to take a quick break, but of course, when we come back, we are going to be talking to the amazing my therapist, Natasha Harris, about traveling and anxiety. It's going to be packed, so get ready. Have you thought about starting your own podcast? Well, listen, honey, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. I mean, you can't beat free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. That's huge. That's right. No minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So get that phone out, download the free Anchor app, or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's right, anchor.fm to get started. Okay, so we're back, and I'm excited because we are about to learn so much knowledge today. My amazing therapist is here, and yes, I do have a therapist, and I am in therapy. And I personally feel like, no, there's nothing wrong with me, but I personally feel like at some point in your life, you should seek therapy, especially, for healing from your own personal things and your past, and understanding who you are and what makes you tick. And even if you're just in situations where you need to seek clarity in your life. And therapy has definitely been that for me, and it's been life-changing for me. And so a lot of people don't realize, but I actually do suffer with anxiety. I really do. It's something that I suffer with, and I will say it has come a very, very, very long way. Thanks to my special guest that's here today. She is an absolute genius to me and is amazing at what she does. I now introduce to you all my therapist, Natasha Harris. How are you today? I am so glad that you're here.
I am doing wonderful. Very excited about your podcast today. So thank you for inviting me to sharing this with you.
I'm really glad to have you here. That just made my whole day when we talked about this with you being here, because everybody knows I love my therapist and I love therapy. So I was
Well,
excited about it.
well, I'm glad, and hopefully that we can share a lot of good information with your listeners. So yeah.
All right, awesome. So, if you don't mind, for those that may not have had a chance to read your bio,
Mm-hmm.
could you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? I want them to hear how awesome you are.
Okay, well, my name is Natasha Harris. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm also a national certified counselor. I'm licensed in Arkansas, Tennessee, and formerly Alabama, my native state. I'm originally from Mobile, Alabama. I am a graduate of the Alabama A&M University, the best school in the land, HBCU.
Oh, Lord.
And also the University of South Alabama in Mobile, from Mobile, Alabama. I've been in private practice for about 10 years. I have two office locations, one in Marion, Arkansas, and also a home office in Collierville, Tennessee. And believe it or not, the home office is mostly filled at 90% capacity each week, because people really love the late evening hours that I provide, and the feel that you're not in an office, but you still have your
Mm-hmm.
privacy. So I've also worked in all facets of my degree. I've been a lead children's therapist for youth villages once upon a time. I've been the lead therapist at a acute hospitalization program in Olive Branch, Mississippi. I have backgrounds in working with domestic violence. I specialize in working with individuals who suffer from anxiety, depression, mood disorders, addiction. One of my specialties are eating disorders. I want to make sure that I am giving my clients, the best level of services. And to do that, I need to make sure that I'm constantly getting continued education. And I'm also recently certified to do EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization training, therapy. And so I'm really excited about that. That helps individuals
Oh,
who have maybe suffered with some trauma. You can use it with depression. And so it's really intensive and hard work in doing that.
wow.
So,
I didn't realize that. I really didn't.
yeah.
You you definitely specialize in anxiety, because I know you have helped me a whole lot when it comes to that.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
that's why I was kind of glad we were here to kind of talk about traveling and anxiety too, because that's just something that a lot of people don't think about unless you deal with it. And so for me, traveling is sort of like a stress reliever. It's when I'm actually at my happiest.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that there are people that's not the case for everyone. And so I know that traveling anxiety is real for some people, and it can take many different forms. So can you give examples of what traveling anxiety may look like, or how would one recognize it?
Sure. Travel anxiety is a very common and complex issue, causing people to feel anxious or depressed when they're preparing for trips, for travel, for a few weeks or a few days. Some people have underlying fear in regards to traveling that encourages increased anxiety. So it is a common thing that people do experience.
So for someone who does have that what advice would you give to them on like how to deal with that anxiety when as it pertains to traveling?
Okay. Well, first, let's go over what some of the symptoms may be. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if you think you are experiencing travel anxiety, and we're just going to put that under the umbrella of anxiety symptoms. And some of those could be rapid heart rate, chest pain, difficulty breathing, nausea or diarrhea, restlessness, agitation, decreased concentration or trouble focusing, trouble sleeping, or insomnia. So, those are some of the anxiety symptoms you may experience. Some things that you can do, for example, is building extra time. So, if you are flying, you want to get to the airport. They already tell you to get there 3 hours before, but you may
Mm-hmm.
want to do maybe an extra hour so that you can plan for if there are going to be large crowds, long lines. Some people fear that they're going to miss their flight, or whatever means that you're traveling, either by train, plane. Some people enjoy taking the bus, and so building in that extra time, and also set reasonable expectations of the atmosphere. You may run into some cranky people. Just some really realistic expectation, and not anticipating the long lines, and things that you were prepared for, like being able, if you realize you left something, that maybe you can stop in the airport at one of their stores and pick up little items and things. Try to stay positive. Traveling can be a hassle, no matter with the best planner. So try to stay positive, or at least neutral. Breathe. Okay, people forget to breathe, especially when you're stressed
Mm-hmm.
and you're overwhelmed, and that can cause or lead, panic attacks. Fact check your anxiety, and what that means is, are you over exaggerating things? Stay in your here and now. That means, like, okay, I have planned for the best, so some things may happen out of my control, but I am confident enough that I can um, call a friend. I can have resources. If I forget something, I can purchase those things when I get to my destination, those kind of things. Accepting your situation helps decrease your anxiety and coming up with a plan. No, we don't like it, but it is our reality, and that's the thing that we're trying to do. Um, if flying makes you anxious, distract yourself during the flight. You can watch a movie, you can listen to music, puzzles, even coloring books you can bring with you. Some flights have it where you can text individuals, if you get those apps,
Oh yeah,
and
I do have the app. Mm-hmm.
right. So, just different distractions can kind of take your mind to where you're going, and excitement of the things that you're going to experience, and, dreaming about what it may look like. You can also try to take a nap. And also, if you really are experiencing severe problems in traveling, I always encourage you to consult with your primary care physician. They can prescribe you some medication, or find a great therapist such as myself. Uh, and you can have a therapy session, to give you some tips, and to practice some relaxation techniques that may help you, to in calming your travel anxiety.
Mm-hmm. And listening to you, I just realized I guess I do have a little bit of travel anxiety as it pertains to, like, if I feel like I'm about to be late, or I'm like, I just really get really irritable, And I do have, I think I do have a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just maybe so like that getting to the airport and getting through that process. But then once I'm there, I'm good. But just getting through that whole process, it does give me a little bit of anxiety. So now that I'm listening to you, I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I do.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of people that may be listening that kind of just want to get started traveling more, especially internationally. But throughout their life, especially being from Mississippi, one thing I noticed was the difference in the culture when, like, my family back in California was just very more, they were open. They just were like, oh, you go here, you do this. So I never thought about things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember transitioning to the South and noticing like it's this thing of almost this fear that was like tried to put into us, like, you don't want to go over there, they do this crazy stuff to people, and you don't want to leave overseas, I'm gonna stay here. And then I remember even just when I went to Dubai recently, people were saying stuff like, be careful because I hear they cut your head off if you mess up or if you don't follow the rules, and crazy stuff like that. And so a lot of times I noticed, like, even when I was getting ready to move to Florida to work at Disney World, there were different family members that was telling my mom, like, you gonna let her go over there? I was 18, but still, like, you're gonna let her go over there, like, even to Florida. It was like, and live like they do this, like, so it's kind of been like this fear that a lot that can contribute to a lot of people why they haven't stepped out and decided to branch out and see the world. So what would you say to someone that would like to get started, but they've been kind of dealing with those thoughts that's been put into their heads all their lives?
Well, that's a great question. You know, you have to know that you are the CEO of your life. You are the expert of your life. And so tapping into what your core beliefs are. You know, when we were growing up, and our parents taught us different things, and before we maybe went off to school, or started in our work career, we kind of took some of that stuff as facts. But then as you go out into the world, you learn more, you
Mm-hmm.
experience more, and so you then may form a difference of an opinion based on your experience. And so I would encourage an individual who may be going through that is to kind of remember you're the CEO of your life and that you can make sound decisions for yourself. I would encourage you not to kind of talk to people that are negative. Do your research. So, we all have friends that um, we may tell a little bit to this person, okay? And then we tell everything to this person, or a family member. We might ask advice because they're great in this subject matter, So kind of just
Mm-hmm.
gauge, okay, I'm having these feelings. Who can I talk to? I wouldn't necessarily go talk to someone who hasn't been out of the country because what
Mm-hmm.
research, what experiences that they can gather from to be
Mm-hmm.
able to say, this is going to happen. And, we all have to do our due diligence and doing research and planning, for the best and
Mm-hmm.
circumstances. So, I would just kind of encourage a person to do that. When you're speaking to someone and they're going negative, having an exit plan of exiting the conversation, like, okay, well, thank you, people might say, well, I'm not going to do that. Why would you do that? Like you said, well, stand in your truth, your excitement of it. Don't allow someone to
Mm-hmm.
make you feel shameful or doubt the decisions that you want to be able to make, to explore. They may not understand it, and that's okay. It is not
Mm-hmm.
your job to be their teacher. It is for your experiences. So I would be very careful and kind of looking at the type of individuals that I am maybe talking to about my upcoming experiences. Sometimes you can't tell people things until after it happens.
True. That's true for
They
sure.
see the pictures later, but especially for a young person, I'm a mother. I have a daughter. She's going to be 21 at the end of the year, and I have almost 14-year-old daughter. And so, we want our to be able to be independent and explore things. And so, you know, taking that, believing in them, taking that risk, allowing them to take healthy risks. As long as you've done your due diligence of doing research, and remembering that you are the CEO of your life. And what that means is CEOs are the top. They make the decisions, they have the expertise or the know-how to go and talk to the right people to get the information, or not to talk to this type of, or, you can look at, different videos, listen to podcasts such as in this one that we're doing, and just kind of do your research.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so important, especially I think that's why I always talk about too when it comes to international traveling, especially to have an open mind, because if you're constantly thinking about those thoughts, like you will never leave, you will never go. Like I know people that has never even left their state because of those kind of things. And so it's really unfortunate because it's such a big, beautiful world out there that I really want people to see and experience, at least try to experience. If it's not for you, then it's not for you. But at least, like you said, you've made that decision. Like it's on you whether you want to do it. And I just hate when people miss out because of fear or what they've been told all their lives, and not making their own decisions to say, hey, I'm not going to go here or I'm not going to do that. They want to, but then they have people in their head.
Right.
And that's kind of a big deal. So I definitely think that's important.
Yeah. And, if you're going to allow someone else to determine, dictate, whether you should, you know, go or participate or, see the world, you might want to, maybe go into therapy and kind of address those issues and kind of see what the driver to that, individuals who have low self-esteem, low confidence, they kind of lean on individuals to kind of guide them and tell them what to do, because they don't recognize and realize that they have been making sound decisions and they are capable of making good choices by doing your research, doing your due diligence, checking to see, safety precautions and following in the culture guidelines, but also looking at the adventure that you're going to be able to experience and share with individuals. And you may influence someone who had a negative thought, of what they thought the experience would be. You're a real person who has gone through it and can, be a testimony. So, but just again, remembering you're the CEO of your life. And so you can make sound decisions for yourself. You know how you feel. And if you're very interested in it, I encourage you to go for the gusto,
Do you think that some of that has to do with, do you think some of that could be a little jealousy too, though? Like I didn't do something and so I don't want you to do it? Or do you think that do you think some of that could play a part in it? Or is it just strictly mostly fear?
Well, it could be a number of things, just depending on the circumstances of where the person is getting information and how the individual view and concept on traveling or experiencing new things are. So again, being able to tap into who you are, if I'm easily influenced by what someone is saying, I love cruising. I love traveling. That is how I kind of input back into my world, especially with the work that I do, and oftentimes working with people who are in crisis and things. So I love traveling and washing your hands, doing your due diligence to practice, you know, safetyness and cleanliness and hygiene, looking at the ratings of the different places that you're going to be staying, but also having you a travel kit with your own hand wipes, sanitizing items, gloves. When I get on a plane, I wipe the seat down, and I will admit,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got the concept from the model. Is it Amani? Um, she went
Mm-hmm.
viral because she kind of almost had on a hazmat, face mask, and she was wiping down her seat, and and I have traveled back and got on a flight and was perfectly fine and came back to Memphis and ended up having the flu. So we can
Mm.
do some things to kind of sanitize our area, but again, if like what we're dealing with right now, and they've put out, it's not advised that you go to a certain area, I will listen to them. Don't put yourself
Mm-hmm.
in um unsafe uh environment or situation. um you know you can always go at a later date where you can have a great time where you're not sick, so
Right.
it will be there.
True. Definitely true. Cause I'm not gonna lie, I was like, "Well, I hope my trip don't get canceled." And then they just been canceling trips left and right. And then eventually, I just got used to it. But then after so long, I'm starting to feel myself get anxious. Like, when is this gonna be? Like, I'm ready to start traveling again. When is this gonna be over
Hmm.
with? But it seems like it's just, you hear so many different things on the news. One minute they saying, "Oh, it's getting better." The next minute somebody else is saying like, "Oh, it's, for like so many more deaths every day." And you're like, "Well, what in the world? What am I supposed to listen to?" So that makes sense. You're saying basically listen to medical professionals and not politicians, because see, it's all over the place in the media of like who we should listen to and who we shouldn't.
Right. And also, if you have a medical condition, potentially being infected or becoming, sick, and you're not going to enjoy your vacation, and who wants to go somewhere where you get stuck somewhere and you have to quarantine and you can't come back, and
Mm-hmm.
so you've paid for a trip that you can't enjoy and now you're sick. So I would encourage people to kind of just slow down just a little bit. It will be there. Mexico is not going anywhere. Dubai is not going anywhere. You know, um, you make your focus on something else while you have the anxiety of ready to go, go, go and get out. You can be, looking at how I can save more money, or, create a larger
Mm-hmm.
budget, or, just do a little bit more research and things. Just to make sure that you will have a safe trip. But again, please listen to the medical experts, and I would take in consideration, what my conditions are, any health risks that I may potentially be exposing myself to.
That just really helped me in just that little bit of time, because I definitely was getting anxious, like, "Oh, I'm ready to go," but I had to think about I guess, the bigger picture. Like, it will always be there. It'll be there when it's time and it's safe. And I guess I just have no trust for like the media for sure right now, because it's just so all over the place. So I'm just gonna continue to listen to the medical professionals, I
Right.
guess.
And,
'Cause,
I'm
yeah.
experiencing it myself. We all are experiencing cabin fever. We're ready to get back out. I'm being from the Gulf Coast myself. I'm ready to get to the beaches and visit, my
Mm-hmm.
family. But I don't want to make my dad sick or my mom sick or anyone, and I don't want to go somewhere and get sick. So, it's just kind of best
Mm-hmm.
to kind of just sit tight a little bit. Like I said, um, those places are not going anywhere. But when we do travel to those places, we want to make sure that we're going to be safe, health wise, looking at it as an adventure and not allowing someone to kind of steal that joy from me, because, of their lack of knowledge, jealousy. And if you're easily influenced, then, that may say something about you, that you have difficulty making sound decisions, or unaware that you have been capable of making great decisions for yourself. So you would be careful with, just kind of who you would speak to, about things. If I, had issues with my teeth, I wouldn't go to a plumber, to ask them, what do you think I should do about my teeth? It's hurting and everything, So you would kind of talk to people and surround yourself around people who are doing it and ask those questions. Most people that travel and enjoy it, they definitely can give you some great tips, that can help ease your anxiety, because they are facts, they have experienced those things.
So the common denominator, and this is just even going back into our sessions a little bit, but the common denominator when it comes to anxiety is understanding the facts. That seems to be in all aspects of it, really. It's just getting the facts to alleviate that. Am I correct in saying
Yes,
that?
but it's also the fear of the unknown. So most people, when they are experiencing anxiety, it's because they don't have the control of, well, I know when I get on this plane, nothing's gonna happen. But understand that some things that are out of my control, and I'm not gonna focus on that. I've done my research. Anything could happen at any time. You don't have to be traveling for that. But it's kind of
Right.
like making sure that you are feeding into someone else's horror stories, or mixing up reality from fantasy. The what ifs. Like I said, I like cruising, so I've had people say, well, that's a lot of water to drink out there, what you gonna do? Well, you know what, I'm gonna have a good time. I'm not thinking about that. I mean,
Right.
Just when that thought comes up in your head, you would say, well, I have no control over that, but I can control my thoughts and distract myself, and, go to something positive. And, is it safe, where I'm staying? And you get to plan all those things, which push you back into control.
Yeah, because when I feel like I don't have control, that's when my anxiety really kind of spikes up. It's like I don't feel like I have control. So that's always my issue. So I definitely understand that. And see, that kind of makes me, this is kind of where I want to switch gears, sort of, because I've been experiencing this a little bit too lately, but we do have a lot of people who, we know we have those that fear traveling and want to get out there, but we have listeners like myself that love it so much. And with coronavirus happening and all of that, it's kind of, and then we're not knowing what's going to happen with traveling and the travel industry now, and the changes that they're saying that's going to come. I'm not gonna lie. It is a little like it kind of can make you think, and it kind of bring you down, because you don't know like what's gonna happen. Am I gonna be able to travel again? When I'm gonna be able to travel again? So what would you say to someone like that may be listening, that they love to travel, they're not afraid of it, they don't have anxiety about it, but the anxiety now is not knowing what the future holds with traveling because of coronavirus?
Well, because it is so new and there are new information that's coming out daily, I would encourage everyone just to kind of listen to the medical professionals, consult with your doctor, be aware of your own health issues that you may have.
So at what point, so we kind of talked about the different anxieties. So in the different situations that would kind of bring that on, at what point would you recommend someone seek therapy when they're dealing with that? What point would you say, okay, you should talk to a therapist? Because, I guess there's different levels to it. So when would you recommend someone to seek professional
Um,
help?
well, if you feel that it has become debilitating to you, where you experience those symptoms of anxiety that we mentioned, thinking about traveling, or you may have had a negative experience in traveling, and that continues to come up anytime that you think about traveling or wanting to traveling and you feel held back. I would encourage, to speak with a therapist. They're professionals. We treat individuals on all levels, with people with, mild symptoms to severe symptoms. If you are feeling that you can't handle it by yourself, and the things that you have tried to, coping strategies that you know of that you've tried to use, I just encourage you to get professional help, because that's what we're here for, to help you through that process. And there may be other underlying issues like, trauma or phobias that have exacerbated the situation for you to feel uncomfortable or debilitated to travel. And so getting in a good treatment program, therapy program, evidence-based program, there are a plethora of therapists with a lot of expertise and background, and you would just find the right fit for yourself.
I'm going to switch gears. This is a section that I like to call Travel Tea, which is where we discuss a hot topic in the travel community. And in this part, it's more so catered to what you can kind of talk about and speak to. And that is what is the difference, or basically travel phobias versus travel anxiety. Is there a difference? And if so, what are those differences?
Yeah, well, we've already kind of mentioned about anxiety and what those symptoms are. So I'm gonna, focus on the phobia side. And so phobias are a persistent, intense, and unrealistic fear of a certain object or a situation. And they typically involve fears related to like animals, natural environment, medical issues, or a specific situation. Now, there are many, many types of phobia, but for the sake, since we're talking about traveling, I'm going to just kind of talk about a few of those related to that. And so one that is aerophobia, that is the fear of flying. And there is acrophobia, which is the fear of heights. Let's see, there is claustrophobia. That's a familiar one. That is the fear of being confined or crowded spaces. Any of the phobias, it's always good to, again, consult with a therapist to, discuss things that you can do to decrease those thoughts of phobia through therapy and medication. If you think you're having a phobia that's causing a disruption in your life, you definitely want to speak with your doctor for an evaluation and treatment options. Treatment looks different on everyone. So, you may have a friend that experienced anxiety or has a phobia, and they may say, oh, well, I never heard of that, or we're using this type of therapy, but your therapist is going to tailor it to you as an individual. I know myself as a therapist, I don't do a cookie cutter program, meaning I see many of people who suffer from anxiety, but it looks different on everyone. And so you and the therapist is going to formulate a treatment plan and, develop, strategies and techniques to be able to help you to be able to work through those issues that you have. So I always encourage people to just kind of be careful of individuals who are in therapy themselves and kind of just telling you what their experiences is, because they're not telling you everything that they may be coming up that looks different from you. And your therapist is going to work with you and identifying those, disorders or problematic issues,
Mm-hmm.
and you know help you to be able to work through your issues, so that you can have a healthier life.
I really have more anxiety as it pertains to traveling than I thought. One thing that really gets me is before a trip, the packing and try to get outfits together. I don't know why I have this thing where I gotta buy new clothes for every trip, and I gotta have multiple outfits, and get I really can get really irritable, or really my anxiety can spike up right before a trip as well when I'm planning it. And then when I get there and I'm on the way, then I calm down, I get excited. But that planning piece too really kind of can get to me sometimes too, because I'm like, I can't find nothing to wear. I don't like this outfit, and I really can overthink some things a little bit before a trip too, that I know that I do it, but I never really thought about it that way. It's just something that I'm so used to doing. Like, okay, I know I'm having anxiety about my clothes, and I don't know why what I wear gives me so much anxiety
Mm-hmm.
before a trip. And then I get excited once I'm kind of there, and I done got past TSA through the airport, and we just getting ready to get there. But before then, I really do. I can be like, oh my God. So sometimes I do have to step away and be like, you know what? I'm just gonna wear what I got, whatever I have. That's what I'm gonna have to work with, and it's I'm
Mm-hmm.
just have to rock it. I don't know
And
why
some
I have that.
individuals experience that when the trip is over, and they're returning back or getting ready to return back
Mm-hmm.
to home or back to their work life, and they may become depressed or sad or agitated. And so I always encourage individuals, if you can, take a day when you come back and do nothing. It's okay if you come in and your luggage is still, I mean, your clothes are still in your luggage, for a day or two. Give yourself time to reset. I encourage people to kind of plan for when you're coming back. For example, I like to have a clean house when I kind of come back. Although when I'm packing, I
Me
kind of go,
too.
it looks like the Tasmanian devil has gone through my
Right.
closet. But I at least try to make sure that I have clean linen on my beds. Everything is set up nicely in my bedroom. That's my oasis. And so when I come in from a trip, and that's a place that I can unwind and do nothing, and
Mm-hmm.
be back in my bed. Some individuals, they have a favorite chair, because when you're away, you kind of miss those things. Even though you're on a great vacation, you miss those things, those items that give you comfort. So kind of just coming up with your self-soothing items that help you to be able to de-stress and prepare for returning back to your work life, your home life. Exercising, we don't think about doing that when we go on vacations or when we come back, but you want to try to release the endorphins and do things naturally to help your body to reset again. Um, so, you know, those are some things that you can do to kind of de-stress and to kind of allow your body to reset back into and acclimate back into, your home life. Most individuals, when they go, on a trip or traveling for vacation, they're either on the go all the time, or it's for relaxation. You may
Mm-hmm.
sleep more, you may, relax more. And so if
Mm-hmm.
you're coming back to an environment where your job is high pace and high impact, that will cause some sort of anxiety and depression. And if you feel that it is debilitating, you do want to get in a good therapy based treatment program to address and identify those underlying issues that are driving those feelings. um,
It's so funny you say that because I deal with that. Like every time when I'm getting ready to come home, like I just get so I guess moody or irritable or even feel a little down because I'm like, I gotta get back to reality, and now I gotta think about this, and then I gotta make sure this is done, and now it's like I gotta get back to reality. And I do have that. I definitely deal with that a lot of like I'm
Mm-hmm.
sad when I get back. For at least for
Mm-hmm.
the first couple of days. I'm a little down like those first couple of days. And I never knew why I did that. I just knew that was something that I do when especially if I'm on a long trip, and I've been there for a while and kind of been relaxing for at least a week or more, and then to know that I'm about to come home, I definitely start to feel that same way. And like when I come home for like the first 2 or 3 days, I'm just a little bit like
Mm-hmm.
I want to be bothered.
And part of that is just kind of typical uh, normalized behavior. Hey, you just had a great trip, so who wants to go back to work? Uh, so sit with
Right.
those feelings. Own those feelings. Try to identify where it is stemming from. But again, if it becomes debilitating, where you are starting to call in to work or making excuses why you can't come into work, or there may be some underlying issues that are going on, and it would be appropriate to speak to someone. Therapy is a great thing. I tell people, just because
Mm-hmm.
you're in therapy doesn't mean that you're diagnosed with a disorder. Sometimes people
Mm-hmm.
use therapy for clarifying, or working through mild issues, or sound
Mm-hmm.
decision making, developing new tools to be able to, it's not the same as
Mm-hmm.
calling your best friend or speaking to a family member
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of getting advice, because there are many forms of therapy.
What I'm loving to see right now, because I'm in therapy and I speak highly of it and I've had a lot of people reach out to me that's saying like, hey, I'm kind of want to do it too. And actually 90 to 95% of my friends, we're all in some kind of therapy. And no, like I think there's this stigma like, oh, is something wrong with you and if you're in therapy. But I feel like even just to have clarity or understand more of like why
Mm-hmm.
you do certain things or who you are and what may have triggered some of those triggers and things like that, that has been helpful alone, just understanding that aspect. So it doesn't, I think people, especially in our community, they have like this stigma, or just even growing up in the Bible Belt. I still hear people to this day, because I was saying that one of my cousins, I was like, you need to go to therapy, period, because he was writing some things on Facebook, and I was just like, you need to go get a therapist, basically telling him that. And there were people that was just like, especially in the Bible Belt, like, you don't need a therapist because you got
Mm-hmm.
Jesus and all this other kind of stuff, and really trying to discourage him from going that route. And it was just like this huge debate of like, God should be your therapist, and I'm like, but God put therapists here for a reason. So I mean, I would like, if you have diabetes, for you to just say,
Right.
I'm not going to the doctor to treat my diabetes because I have Jesus. Like, Jesus alone, like, you also need you might need some type of therapy or someone to talk to. So I'm loving the trend in our community, at least the people that I'm around in my circle, that we're all taking that very serious now and adding that as a part of our life and trying to get healed and work through things, because that's just something that we were never really
Yeah,
told
that
to
is
do.
so true. If I had $1 for every time someone has said to me, "Oh, you're just giving advice," I can do that. Or, I took psychology 101, so I can, I can do that. And it's so much more than just psychology 101. We go through an intensive program that you choose of your track, career track. And there are therapists with many specialization, such as myself, who deal in trauma, uh, various specialization, with, autism or, substance
Mm-hmm.
abuse. And so, you just would look for a person that has the credentialing, and you can simply either
Mm-hmm.
go to the state board of your state and look on search their registry, and it'll come up with their credentials. And you can kind of just Google, or go to the state registry. They'll give you information on that therapist's credentials, that they are
Mm-hmm.
accredited, licensure, or maintain. There are no malpractices under that therapist licensure. Um, and Psychology Today is a great resource in finding.
Mm-hmm. That's the one I use
It's
a
a
lot.
great resource, and there are many, many others. Using simply Google. But I like Psychology Today uh, because we're credentialed each month, which means verified, which means they simply check to make sure that our licenses are not suspended, or we're not involved in a
Mm-hmm.
malpractice lawsuit, or currently, or anything like that. And so that is a great safe method, find a therapist and the right fit for you. Most therapists,
Mm-hmm.
especially in this age with the COVID-19, we are doing telehealth, which is online. Another way to find a
Mm-hmm.
great therapist is to contact your insurance provider, um, because they will have a list of
Mm-hmm.
providers that are in network. And your insurance provider will email you a listing of providers that are in your area. And, if you I
Mm-hmm.
always want to encourage individuals that when you are selecting a therapist and you go in, it's okay if you have your first session and you feel like, I didn't really feel comfortable with this person,
Mm-hmm.
to find another therapist that's a fit for you. Um, um,
Mm-hmm.
Therapists, we understand that's the most important part of your treatment process, and finding someone who you feel can relate to you, understand you, has experience in your cultural
Mm-hmm.
background, has the expertise, the educational background that you're looking for. So don't be afraid to, if that's not a fit, to select a new therapist. But I also want to encourage you that therapy is trying and work and difficult. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
individuals drop therapists because they don't like what they're hearing, or they're getting to a part in therapy that they're not necessarily ready for. And that may be part of their
Mm-hmm.
symptoms to avoid and not commit, and just abruptly disrupt their treatment process and discontinue their uh, therapeutic process. And so be careful of people telling you about their experience. Seek out for yourself, because if that therapist didn't work for that individual, they may work for you.
Woo, that's some good information. But we've got to take a quick break, because when we come back, we will be discussing and taking questions from our listeners. We're back. And I will say, I did get a lot of questions about this topic, mostly through DMs or emails. I didn't get voice messages this time. Normally, some people like to record on the voice message and leave their question. So I am going to read them. I kind of narrowed it down to like the most common themes that I saw, and picked out two questions that reflected what I mostly received. And so the first question that I got was from a listener named Allison out of Florida. And Allison says, I'm 22 years old, no kids, and I would really like to travel abroad and study for a year, as I've been given the opportunity to do so. However, my family is not supportive, and they've made me feel really bad about wanting to go. It's causing me a lot of anxiety. Should I still go and risk my relationship with my family, or should I stay not to cause tension?
I mentioned earlier in saying that each person, if you can think of yourself as the CEO of your life, meaning, a CEO is the head of the company. They make the decisions. They consult with the best people to make those sound decisions. And so I want to encourage you in being the CEO of your life. You're gonna listen to your core, what your passions are, and the only person that knows that is you, because you are the person that's feeling it, right? And so I would encourage you to maybe,
Mm-hmm.
speak to your family member and say, I appreciate your concern, but I feel strongly about my passion to, go abroad and study. It's going to offer me this, and they may not still accept it. But if you are doing something that makes you feel good, that is the most important thing. We're not going to be able to please everybody, but the first thing that you want to be able to do is to please yourself. If you are making sure that you're giving yourself that happiness, taking advantage of opportunities that are coming your way, I think that you will feel even better that you were able to make a difficult decision. And I think that your family, maybe eventually will support you on it, because sometimes people don't support things they don't understand. So
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage that individual just to kind of, if they are passionate about it and done their research and they feel it's a great opportunity for them, I encourage them to, go for it. That could be something that, maybe if you feel you can't talk to that family member by yourself, hey, take them to therapy, to understand. And sometimes it's rooted into some underlying issues, when an individual finds it difficult to um, you know, go away from the norm of what a parent is saying. It's not that you're trying to be disrespectful or anything, but that is what we're raising our kids to be able to be: independent, self-sufficient. And um, I'm sure that you have done your due diligence to be able to, hard work and to be offered an opportunity such as you have received. So just remembering that you are the CEO of your life, you are the expert, and if you feel passionate about it, I would encourage you to, move forward.
I definitely say I second that. I say go. I would say go anyway. But I was always kind of the one in the family that kind of always marched to the beat of my own drum and did what I wanted to do anyway. Like even for me, I kind of feel where she's coming from, because when I got the opportunity to work at Disney World, it was just Florida, but people were making it they were making it seem like it was such a, like, telling my mom, you gonna let her go all the way and live out in Florida, and this, and I'm like, I'm going. So whether she say it or not, she was supportive of it, but I had already made up my mind that I was going, and it wasn't nobody gonna stop me. And even just when it came to my experience of leaving my hometown to go to college somewhere else that was different than where everybody else usually goes. And so everybody was like, no, you're going to go here. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going there. I'm going where I want to go. So I always kind of had that. I actually have always had a strong level of independence, I can say. And so for me, it's a no brainer. Like, go. If they'll eventually get over it. Like they'll eventually
Mm-hmm.
more than likely accept it, I guess. Like they, especially when she does well. Like for me, I did really well, and now it's like, oh, I'm so proud of you. But
But
at
yeah, but
first,
even if you
it
don't
was a
do
lot of
well,
pushback.
you can say, hey, I did try, and this is a great experience for me. And you're the person that's going to be experiencing it, and ask yourself, if I don't do this, how will I feel? Times when we don't listen to our passions and, you know, go after the things that we desire, you know, we become resentful toward ourselves, toward those individuals that we listen to. I think that would be a great opportunity. Healthy risks are good risks. And healthy risks are things such as that. You know, you're given an opportunity and you have done your research and you say, okay, I'm going to go for it. Whether I succeed or not, I want to take a chance on this. End of the day, you will feel good about the fact that I carried out and saw through an adventure or an opportunity for myself.
Okay, so this is question number 2. This one was a common question that I received from multiple people as it pertains to traveling anxiety. We touched on it earlier in the show, but I guess what I'm noticing is that's one of the biggest things for people who haven't really put themselves out there to start traveling yet as it pertains to their anxiety, and that is the fear of flying. And so it was so common, I'm just going to pull one of those questions that I received. This one was from Kelly out of Collierville, Tennessee. Kelly says, hi, I have a huge fear of flying, but I really want to start traveling. I've never flown before. The only vacations I've taken have been driving distance. What should I do to get out there and get started?
Sounds like maybe the phobia that we talked about, aerophobia. And that is the fear of flying. So kind of just, you know, thinking about what the expectations are. You know, I would encourage someone who may be experiencing that to really get into a good therapy base, and maybe they can, you know, do some cognitive behavior therapy. That's where, you know, you're kind of retraining the brain, you know, a lot of different therapeutic techniques that we can use under the cognitive behavior approach. Also with exposure therapy. But I definitely would arrive early, pre-plan, you know, set realistic expectations, maybe some things that will distract you on the flight, you know, develop some coping strategies, kind of getting a good therapy base, you know, speaking with a therapist, because at some point that individual may have created the fear because of the unknown. And so sometimes it's attached to a situation or a movie, or they heard of a bad experience from someone else. Or, you know, we've seen things on the news. And so just kind of just going through those things of, okay, you know, what can I do to help soothe myself? A couple of other things that I encourage people to do is sometimes you have a favorite fragrance and you can spray that on a cloth, you know, have it in your pocket to be able to pull out to kind of just smell, you know, to give you some comfort. Breathing techniques. There are consulting with your primary care physician of med management medication. They may be able to prescribe you to help you to be able to decrease those anxiety. But I think if that individual has never flown and have fear, you know, don't be afraid to, you know, call a therapist and, you know, schedule an appointment so that you can work through those, you know, feelings and emotions, and come up with effective coping strategies for you.
And then when they do kind of finally get over that fear and want to start flying, don't try to fly to Dubai the first time either. Like, that's you're going to be flying for 20 hours. They might need to start off with something closer, like Atlanta or somewhere. It's like an hour flight or something like that. Is it safe to say that? Because
individuals such as that person, you know, we may do some exposure therapy where, you know, we go to the airport and, you know, we may sit in the parking lot and look at the, you know, planes, or, you know, go inside and look at the process. And, you know, you can only go so far, or just give them different activities that they would do outside of therapy that will help them to develop skills and strategies to be able to decrease that fear of flying that is associated with maybe their phobia or anxiety that they experience.
That's why people need therapists, because that's something that I would have never thought of. Like, a normal person, we just don't think like that. We're like, just take a quick flight and then go. But to say like maybe just going to the airport and sitting in the parking lot, that kind of stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
I would have never thought about that at all, or realized that that's something that is you guys even do, or as a part of a therapy process. Like, that's something that
Mm-hmm.
you guys
Well,
do.
and
That's
there are things we
dedication
can do
to
in
your
office with
patients. 'Cause-
simulations and depending on,
Mhm,
when we assess an individual, how deep that trauma is associated with it, or
mhm,
just phobia, or sometimes we create, unrealistic myths in our head because we've never done something before and someone else told us about a bad experience or we saw it on the news, and so we incorporate that as our truth.
mhm,
Of course I'm going to say therapy, but therapy is really wonderful. Counseling is really wonderful. I myself has, been in therapy before. I'm a therapist that suffer from anxiety. Um, and so I pride myself on, gaining a lot of information and doing a lot of trainings on various ways that I can help my clients. And there are many more therapists out there, such as myself, that do the same thing. So it's kind of like what you mentioned before,
mhm,
if you had diabetes, you'll find out the things that you need to do, things you need to stay away from. You will consult with your doctor. And so
mhm,
I want to encourage your listeners that, if you have a problem outside of yourself that becomes debilitating, um, from work or your home life or school or, uh, you know, family life, get into a good therapeutic program, find a therapist, and, so you can work through those feelings, those, issues you may have to have a healthier life.
Can you let the listeners know, as we're getting ready to come to a close, how they can support you? How can you be reached?
You live in the Memphis or surrounding area of Mississippi or Arkansas, you can reach me at my website, which is roadmaps with an S dot therapyclient.com. There you'll be able to view my availability, schedule a new client. You can also find me again on Psychology Today, by simply just putting in my name, Natasha Harris, and your zip code that you're in, and it will pull up. My
Mhm.
phone number to be reached is area code 901-270-7361. That is a secure line, and you are welcome to leave a detailed message at that number. Also, if you're online and you reach me at the website of Psychology Today, there is a link there that you can click that will either you can make a phone call directly from your computer or smartphone, to contact me, or you can send me a secure email requesting an appointment. I do encourage you to, if you're going to be using insurance, contact them to see what benefits that you may have. Are you covered? But if you aren't able to do that, we take care of that in our office so that you'll know day one, prior to your appointment, any responsibilities that you may require or not. I also offer online therapy, and
Mhm.
you can schedule the same exact way to request online services. And office hours are from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's the last session in office, but I also see individuals up to 10 p.m. online. I look forward to working with any of your prospective listeners or answering any questions that they may have to get them on the right road to their therapeutic treatment process. Hope your listeners were able to gain some knowledge and some tips during this process today.
I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have. I have learned myself. Thank you so much again for coming today. All right, you guys, I hope y'all learned something. I hope that you are maybe inspired to seek treatment if what has been holding you back from seeing this beautiful world is fear, anxiety, or phobias. I know that she is no doubt amazing at what she does, especially when you have one-on-one sessions with her. So don't hesitate to think about therapy if it's ever needed. I am trying to alleviate anything that is getting in the way of you seeing the world. So I will catch y'all next week as we will have another great episode coming up on the 22nd. And y'all, peace out.